Hey, yo, we are live. We are also going to go live on Instagram, which requires me to jump over and click a little. It's doing this again. Oh, there it is. Yay. We are live on Instagram too. I love it. I love it. I love it. All right. Only our second time going live on Instagram. We are still kind of playing around with how StreamYard connects to that. But welcome, everybody. Welcome to another Wine and Comics pairing show. I'm about to introduce our special guest and the comic we're going to talk about today. But first, our schnazzy opening. I need to come up with another word than schnazzy for that. I call it the schnazzy opening every single time, and I feel like I need a broader vocabulary for what to call that thing. But now that we've all heard that, welcome everybody. Please sound off in the comments if you can comment and you're not just listening to this passively. I can see that there's a bunch of you right here at the start, and I love that. But welcome everybody. Raymond Lolacher. I hope I'm pronouncing that last name correctly. It is Lolacher.
Close. It's Lolacher.
Lolacher. So yeah. Raymond Lolacher, he is the writer, creator, artist of I Hate the Mourning. But there is his beautiful cover. This is a comic. It was originally going to be black and white, but he is now hand oil painting, coloring the insides. And if that is correct,
no,
I believe
you're a little off on that. So there's 4 pages of the interior that are going to be oil painted.
Okay, but you're not doing the whole comic. I thought not maybe the plans changed. Now you're doing the whole comic.
It's going to be digital colors on the other pages, but
okay,
yeah, 4 pages are still oil painted.
Is this cover oil painted?
Yes, it is.
Yes, it is. This is a beautiful cover. This cover sold me on the comic. Like I had to find out more about it when I saw this. Oh, let's put this down. Okay, let me make him bigger. Hold on. Boom. Look at that magic. That is awesome. Oh my goodness. Woo. All right.
Yeah, that's the original painting I did for it.
That's gorgeous. Welcome, John. Rock on, my man. Welcome. And so Raymond. Yeah, so Raymond, your original plan, now I think this makes it all make more sense. So I know that you had those 4 pages. Was that inspired, the 4 pages that were going to be in color, by kind of the manga thing where they always would open with like that handful of colored pages and then went into black and white? Did that enter into it, or was this? Yeah.
There's actually a part in the comic where it kind of switches scenes, like the tempo of the comic changes. Okay. And so I was going to have it go like a splash of color instead of the black and white, which was going all the way through. So it'd have a different look to it. But then I talked to the printer about it, and I thought, well, maybe I'll get a deal and just have to pay for the color pages. And they're like, no. It's all or nothing. So I ended up, I'm not going to just leave it black and white with those oil painted pages I did. It's like, nah, I got to go all the way now.
Yeah, but those will then be digitally colored, but now it's all going to be colored on the inside. Yeah. Got it. That's awesome. I mean, for one thing, the oil painted pages are, if the preview pages you sent me included those oil covered, or were those the digitally colored pages?
Those are digitally ones, yeah.
Those are the digital, because that was the beginning of the comic. So full disclosure, everyone, we read I say we, it might just be me. Dallas might be joining us a little bit later. But he is not here at the beginning. As I was telling Raymond when we were backstage, for those who watch us regularly, you know that Dallas has been on the East Coast for quite some time, pretty much since we started live streaming. We both live in LA technically, but he's been almost a year on the East Coast, and he surprised me yesterday by coming back to LA. We hung out in person for the first time in a long time, and he's back to just he's going back to the East Coast right away, but after this weekend, but he's just come back to like touch base with his life in LA and make sure that all the wheels are still spinning and things. I checked on his apartment, which he said was like coated in a thick layer, that dust where it's like the moment you walk in, you're like, it's like an abandoned residence. It's like one of those, haunted house ghost stories where it's like you go in and it's like the place hasn't been lived in for 100 years, and he's like, it was disgusting. He's like, he's like deep cleaning his apartment. He will be back in LA for good starting in April, but he just sort of stopped by, surprised me. I did not know what was happening, and I did not think, as he's now like going and meeting with everyone in LA for the weekend, I think he might have forgotten that we had something scheduled tonight, and he's busy taking care of his LA life. So he may not be joining us today. We're going to find out as we go. He might just pop in at some point, but if not, it's me and Raymond. So I was able to read a preview of I Hate the Mourning. I got, so we got some of the colored pages, but those were the digitally colored pages. A couple of the black and white pages, which are going to be colored as we go on. And it was really just the first hint of what this story is going to be. It's basically described as an 80s slasher meets vampire lore. And the slasher part at the beginning, the setup it's very 80s slasher. It's like all these kids in the woods hanging out. Some are dicks, some are less dicks, but they're all like, primed for things to go wrong. One thing goes kind of horribly-ish wrong in those first early pages, and that's going to lead to something more and more. And then I don't know how the vampires are going to factor in yet, but we're going to be talking about the parts of the comic as a whole. And then when we do the wine pairings, I'm going to give my best guess to the style and aesthetic and substance of what I think this comic is going to be. But Raymond, start us off, because you are, as a creator, completely new to me. So you're up in Canada. Where in Canada are you?
I'm in Saskatchewan, if you're familiar with that.
So I've never been, but I know of.
Yeah, it's Regina, Saskatchewan. So that's it's right in the middle of Canada, basically on the prairies.
Okay.
We're stuffed between the Calgary Flames and the Winnipeg Jets.
And as a creator living up there, so you're an artist, and we were talking about your day job doing essentially auto body work painting for Amazon.
No, it's not for Amazon.
Okay.
It's for a private company, a local company.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. But today you were working on things for Amazon via this private company, was it?
Nope.
Or did I just mishear Amazon?
I think you just misheard. Yeah, we were still setting up the mic there.
Yeah, must have been. But in any event, so that is the day job. And what made you get into wanting to do comics? And have you been a comics fan your whole life? And why slide into this?
Well, I was a comics fan my entire life. Yeah, ever since you could pick one up.
Usually the way. Yeah.
Yeah, and then high school, I was into it big time. I really wanted to start a comic career, basically. And I had plans to go to college and whatnot. And then, I met my wife. And we decided we were going to have kids and raise our kids instead. And so I found a job at the newspaper in town. I worked there for 20 years. So, yeah. Then that's shifted, and everything else shifts. And it's hard to do comics when you have kids. I'm sure a lot of comic creators that have kids know this. So it was put on the back burner for quite a few years. And then I was in my late 30s, and I thought, my kids are old enough at this point. Mm-hmm. Might as well pick up the pencil again and get back at it. So, yeah, and I basically got back into comics, and I started drawing more and more. And because I'm primarily an artist, I just took up the writing because I was tired of waiting.
And no formal training in art,
no.
From what I hear. Nope,
just
amazing.
High school. Yeah,
yeah, that's really impressive. Yeah,
it's just basically getting your feet wet again. And I met a few creators along the way that kind of helped me. Along the way into the indie comic scene, which is something that, frankly, when I was growing up, there wasn't anything like this at all. So.
Right. No,
there
was, I mean, there was, when I was growing up, and we're going to be close to the same age. I don't know exactly, but if you were in your late 30s when you were picking up the pencil again, that's going to put us within spitting distance of each other.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. So when I was growing up, I mean, there was a I guess I shouldn't call it a vibrant indie scene, because I think compared to where we were just coming out of the 80s and the early 90s, it was actually in much more trouble than it used to be. Like, we were coming out of the heyday, but I think there were tons of creators that had been inspired by the indie movements of the 80s and into the early 90s, that there still were, if you looked for them in previews, and I definitely did. One of my favorite, I just put it on my top 8 list. I was trying to create my top 10 comics of all time, and it made it in. I haven't picked what 9 and 10 is yet, but I have my top 8. And one of them was another Canadian creator and comic that I found, that I discovered around the early OOs, which is Thieves and Kings, Mark Oakley. If you're familiar with that guy and familiar with that comic.
Sounds familiar. I don't know.
Sounds familiar. Okay. It had it had a little bit of a explosive. I think it might have been one of those indie creators, because Dave Sim and Cerebus did this thing for a little while where he would spotlight indie creators in the back of a Cerebus issue. And he did this for a number of years running. And every time someone got spotlighted in Cerebus, I mean, they had a little small explosion of popularity. Suddenly they were in the direct market. Every comic shop was ordering them for like a handful of issues, until everyone realized no one was going to sell 100,000 copies, and everyone started to back off again. But I discovered Thieves and Kings from that, and then it had that little brief explosion where I think that issue number 1 went into like a 5th or 6th printing. It was nuts. Like, it just kept going, and I was like, damn. And I think my issue number 1 was like 4th or 5th printing. I mean, I was late to the party. But then I kept going with it, and it's still going to this day, just at a much, he was doing it like bi-monthly, and now it's like, I don't know, an issue a year, something like that. He's like slowed down his roll, and he's like, I'm just piddling around with this as I can, but that era is over. But I think it was that time where there were all these amazing indie comics for me, but nothing like Kickstarter, where now it allows us to get back to something like semi-normalcy in terms of output, right? Where it's like, so.
I put a post on Twitter the other day, and I put that I was grateful for Kickstarter. And it's this kind of, you know, the freedom that it gives creators, like indie creators nowadays, is amazing. I find, like, where you put your product up there, you don't have to give away any of your ownership.
Right.
Like, it's yours, right? And it's not up to a publisher to decide if it's good or if it's not. You basically let the public decide.
Right.
And I think that's a major change in the indie scene for sure.
100%. I think it's a change too, like being something like crowdfunding. I'm really glad comics caught on crowdfunding, because it's a different mentality for the backer too, right? It's a different mindset in terms of supporting the creation of something. So you're willing to pay. One of the conversations that comics have been having for a couple decades now is that the cover price has been tethered to Marvel DC prices, which have never been the proper price for like what it really costs to create these things and like cover those costs. And so, but when you're supporting the creation of something, of course, now you're like, yeah, $10 for a single issue. That makes sense on crowdfunding. Whereas if you saw $9.99 on a comic shop single issue comic, we still get a little cagey about that. And we're still kind of like, you know, like, no, like, what the fuck? No, I'm not doing that. Like, are you nuts? But we see it on Kickstarter and we're like, pledge.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good price.
Away we go.
Yeah.
100%. So this is your 3rd Kickstarter, correct?
Yeah. I had my previous 2 were Fallen issue 1 and 2. And that was about a character that he had basically had nightmares and then was cursed, or was given, however you want to look at it, with dragon powers. And we went through 2 issues now, and I'm working on the 3rd one as we speak. But I basically, last year I wanted to do a horror comic. I just had like something in me is like, I need to draw horror, right?
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, that was going to be my next question. Why the pivot? Yeah.
Yeah, so I was like, you know, I was kind of stuck with Fallen 2 a little bit. I was like, where do which road do you go down, right? So I was like, maybe I need a little break. So I used I Hate the Morning as a break for for Fallen, and
Very
yeah, I made a horror comic. I was like, why not?
Why not? And are you so one? Is this a one shot or is this going to be a limited series?
No, it's just the one shot.
Just the one shot. Okay. And 32 pages, correct?
Yep,
Grand
32
total?
pages all the way through. No ads, all comic.
Right. All comic. 32 pages of story one way or the other. And probably since you've already got the printer quote, it is 32 pages of comic. That's what you're getting.
Yes.
And so slasher vampire, which is what this comic is. One, why combine the two? And are those did the idea just come to you like this was something and then you pursued it, or are those like your favorite horror genres?
Well, they are my favorite horror genres. The idea, I think it was, I wanted to do a vampire story, and then I thought, I want it to be kind of dirty, like all these vampire stories. It seems like they're clean, some vampire in a suit walking around in London or something, and I was like, nah, I want something raw, something dirty.
Right.
So I was like, how about in the woods, and then
Monster in the Woods, right? Yeah.
Monster in the Woods. And then what better than a group of like young kids messing around like a 80s horror movie. We all know what happens in those movies. Like that's why they're so memorable, right?
Yeah.
So I thought, why not combine the two?
Very cool. And biter instead of a slasher, essentially.
Yeah, so it's a vampire instead of the slasher. And out of all that, you got the vampire hates the morning.
Very cool. Yeah, I think the closest I've can think of. I mean, I'm trying to think of like how many dirty vampire there's got to be something out there like that. I think I might have even seen a movie like that, but nothing coming to mind. This is how rarely you see that type of a thing. And the closest thing I've seen to like a vampire hunting kids is probably Dracula 2000, if you remember that movie.
Yeah, I remember
back in the day. Yeah, I mean, it's a better movie than it has any right to be. It's a weirdly kind of entertaining, good vampire Dracula movie. Gerard Butler is Dracula, by the way, everyone, in case if you want to see Gerard Butler with his thick Scottish accent that he cannot hide to save his life.
I forgot he was in that. You're right. Yeah.
He's Dracula.
It's kind of funny when you look back on movies and you're like, I didn't realize this guy was in this movie even,
Yeah. Like, oh. Yeah. And then you go back and he's like kind of slim and he's completely beardless. He is like clean shaven with long hair. And just like, I mean, it is one of those things like you're looking at that. If you don't know it's Gerard Butler going in, you just kind of look at that face and you're like, do I know this actor? Because like some of the features are like in the way he looks. And then you hear the voice and the delivery. Because this was shortly after Dracula 2000. I think he did Phantom of the Opera. So this is right around that era where but he hadn't done 300 yet. He hadn't gotten to be his like action hero,
huge
Gerard Butler version yet. Yeah. And he was still this like weirdly slender goth looking guy. And then, but again, he cannot hide that accent of his, like, even though it's
so prominent, you still see it in his new movies even.
Oh yeah. Well, I think for the most part, it's kind of like what's like Schwarzenegger, right? Like no one ever tried to get Schwarzenegger not to have that accent.
Yeah,
no one cared.
Can't.
They're like, you can't, and it's what people expect at some point. Like once you get them used to it, you're like, you watch a Stallone movie for how he talks. That's a part of it. You're like, you want that from Stallone, you want that from Schwarzenegger, and you want that from someone like Gerard Butler, where it's like we've seen no matter who he is, no matter where he's supposed to be from or what job he supposedly holds, like he could be the president of the United States with that thick Scottish accent, and you're like, yeah, whatever, sure.
Well, I think with this too, like is it's like their trademark, and like there's some actors that aren't the most handsome looking fellas or ladies even, for that matter.
Yeah.
And you're like, how did this person get into Hollywood? But you know what it is?
Right.
They have that recognizable face.
Right.
They look unique. Like you spot them and you're like, oh, it's that person.
Right.
So
there's that term ugly sexy, right? Which is not the nicest term per se, but like a lot of times like Willem Dafoe usually gets labeled like slap that, because there is something to him, even beyond his unique looks. It's like even his style and his energy and like the way his expressions and his everything, whether he's young, whether he's old, there's always this element like Right. And a number of people are like, no, that's hot. Like, it's hard to describe it, but it's like, it's not classical good looks, quote unquote. Like, it's not that textbook version of what
Like
is supposed
a
to be
Steve
hot.
Buscemi.
You know what? I would love to find. I don't know if I've ever heard anyone be like, he is scalding. But I would love to meet that person and be like, I'm sure they exist. Like, you
Well,
grow up
you
on
know,
Steve
when
Buscemi. Yeah.
Steve Buscemi was younger, he was actually a model.
Was he really? You know what? I
Yeah,
can kind of see that, especially pre-facial hair.
yeah,
Steve Buscemi, like, because he had that slender model body, like you could dress him in just about anything and it would like
yeah,
drape on him.
exactly.
Okay, yeah, I can actually kind of see that. So, on the subject of vampires, favorite vampire stories for you? Like, what were the ones that got you into vampires?
Oh, let's see. I loved like all the Draculas. Like I don't know. There's so many of them. It's hard to pick, but I've watched all of them. Like the
Nope, I hear
classic
that.
ones are always the best, I think. You got your like 1940s vampire movies. Those are, oh, I love them. And
Okay,
then
Nosferatu and as well, like even like that silent era.
I never really got into the Nosferatu very much.
Okay.
But maybe it's just because I never spent the time to really watch it. I'll have to look it up one day.
Speaking of Willem Dafoe, did you ever see his sort of, what was it, Shadow of the Nosferatu or whatever it was called? Oh, I'm gonna forget the name. It was
Yes, I did see that.
yeah, okay. I'm gonna forget the exact title. It's like a little bit of a title with
That was a
Nosferatu or
while ago.
Vampire,
Yeah.
Shadow of the Vampire, something like that, where he plays the Nosferatu character.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
where
yeah.
he was like all dressing up and putting the makeup on and everything. Yeah, I remember seeing that.
Yep.
That's quite old now, actually, I think.
Yeah, it's like early 00s, so it does date it, or maybe like 2008 or something at the latest. But yeah,
Yeah.
that's going to kind of date us. Were you into like the Anne Rice type of vampires as well?
Oh yeah, the Bram Stoker and the Anne Rice, like the Interview with the Vampire was great. I like those ones, but yeah, like I said, like none of them really got into the raw aspect of. I guess this new one that came out was kind of the Voyage.
Oh, Voyage of the Demeter.
Yes.
Yes.
That was a little nasty, but it took place.
Okay, I haven't seen that one yet. I haven't seen
It was
that one
pretty
yet.
good. Yeah, it wasn't terrible.
All right. And what about and 30 Days of Night? That's a little raw. Like they're organized, but they're also a little animalistic, right? They're just like, we're a pack and we hunt, and that skirts the line of going raw with them, I think.
Yeah, and what's that other What We Do in the Shadows? Like that's.
Oh yeah.
I mean, that actually might be one of my favorite movies I've ever seen.
Okay. All right.
Going into that, I really did not expect that type of movie because I didn't watch any previews. Just push play and like, a vampire movie.
Oh, you didn't know it was a comedy?
No, I had no idea.
That's funny.
And I was like, what's going on here? What's this stuff about Peter? Right? Yeah.
Right. Oh, that's hysterical. And for the slasher, what's the pinnacle of slasher for you? What's the peak? What is no one matched to this day?
I'm probably more of like a Freddy, I think. Like Friday the 13th. Okay. I like that.
Something a little more
nightmares and stuff.
Yeah. A little more monster-ish, a little more creature-ish, and more inventive, right? Yeah. Because you got the whole dream thing. So like all the way people die in the dreams, all the way what Freddy does. And okay, do you like funnier Freddy in the later ones or more serious Freddy?
More serious Freddy was better, I think. Yeah, I like the just kind of.
It's the balance, right? Yeah.
Yeah, you had to have a couple wisecracks, but it still had to be. He had to be
scary.
Yeah, scary.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I couldn't even watch the first Nightmare on Elm Street when I was a kid. I was way too scared. I couldn't do it. To be fair, I couldn't do most horror movies. I remember the popping my cherry on that finally was Texas Chainsaw Massacre. That was the one where I was like, you know what? I'm watching this by myself. No one else is home. I was at I was living with my parents still at the time. I was fair.
Was it the original one?
Oh yeah, the original. They hadn't made any others yet, or they made the sequels, but they hadn't remade it yet in any way. This was back in late 90s or early 00s, somewhere right in there. So I was either in college or just out of college, somewhere in there. And I was finally like, I got to get past this whole, like, I don't watch horror movie thing, and I gotta get into it. And I sat down with tech. Now, no one else was home and all the lights in the house were off. Cause I'm like, I got to do it proper. And then I put it on, and I got to the very first moment where like one of the kids is like, someone's knocking at the front door of that thing, and like, then they're looking through the windows and there's no one there. And then all of a sudden, like, the door just like opens and he grabs them, pulls them in, slams the door. And I was just like, nope. And turned on all the lights throughout the whole house and was like, waited for people to get home. Then I finished it and kept going. But I was just like, I was like, fuck this. I'm not doing this any further.
There's one movie I still to this day can't watch. I can't watch
there
the
you go.
Human Centipede.
I can't do it. You can't do the Human Centipede.
No,
you can.
I can't.
Okay, you can't. Okay, perfect.
I get through I get to the opening credits, and then I'm just like, I've tried it like 3 times.
Interesting.
The opening credits, and I just like, no, I can't do it.
Interesting. Yeah, and that's the first Human Centipede, right? That
you're
talking about.
The first one.
Oh God, you'll never make it through the second one if you can't do the first one.
I can't do it.
No, they're bad. I do think it was a good idea. Like for me with Texas Chainsaw, like that is, I still think to this day. Now, obviously, it popped my cherry, so it's like it really affected me in a way that later horror movies, I was more desensitized to them by that point in time. I was more having fun than actually getting scared by them. But I will say to this day, I still think that I think objectively in some ways, like it's so grimy and silent, and the pacing, like there's almost no music.
In the movie. Is quiet.
It's very like
not very many lines.
No, it's so effective, and it's in such a place, like the set and the where they shot and how they dressed people. Like everything looks very real. Everything looks like a home video a little bit, where it's just like someone shooting this
made up Hollywood movie at all. It looks like
no, it doesn't look movie like at all. Yeah. So I do think that helped, like truly pop my cherry to where like everything was fair game after that, where it was kind of like all downhill from there. If I could make it through Texas Chainsaw, I was now able to watch like The Exorcist, Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, like all the stuff I'd put off because I was like, I cannot do any of these. And then I could watch them all and I was like, okay, they're freaky deaky, don't get me wrong, but I'm doing it okay at that point. But all right. So let's go visit the campaign page for I Hate the Morning. Let's take a look at this. I'm going to share my screen. All right, everybody, here it is. I Hate the Morning. As we can see, we are about 1/3 of the way there, $586 out of 1,631 with 32 backers. So we're going to need to get some more backers on this. And let's take a look at the art and everything as we go down here. But and actually, let's play the video. Let's do that so we can see.
I like the video. It was good, I thought.
All right, here we go.
Hello, everyone. This is Raymond Lolacher coming to you. Thank you for checking out I Hate the Morning. This is a horror comic rated M for mature. It's a ghoulish tale about a vampire that is awakened in the woods by some party goers, and kind of terrible what happened. If you'd like to back it, please check it out. There's lots of tiers that are available for all sorts of exciting things.
I cut myself off.
All right.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Actually, I found the song for that. It was on it was like a free music site.
Oh yeah.
Because I'm always worried about using like music that'll be copyrighted.
Oh yeah, you can't. Yeah, you can't.
Yeah.
you got to find those free music sites and
yeah. So I found that on there. And I
yeah.
was like, wow, this just worked out perfectly. Like, yeah,
it does. That was really good find. 100%. All right. So going down here, we've got, now as you just heard the story, a chilling horror story unfolds as a group of unsuspecting friends stir up a long dormant vampire while partying deep within the woods. With each passing moment, more terrors await them as they race against time to survive until dawn. Will any of these partygoers live to see another day? I hate the mourning. By the way, for those listening and not looking, that is I hate the MOURNING. I hate the mourning. Get it? There you go. All right.
Play on words.
So just if you go to Kickstarter and search for it later, make sure you're typing in the right morning. It might help you find it a little bit easier. And of course, this gorgeous main cover, which I still just, I'm so in love with this cover. And then we've got, fusion of 80s slasher movies and vampire lore. Draws inspiration. Here we go from Tales from the Crypt, I believe. Creepshow, The Tomb of Dracula, The Vault of Horror, and Creepy, as well as films like Dracula, all adaptations, Nosferatu, as we were just talking about, Blade, Lost Boys, Cabin in the Woods, Scream, Friday the 13th, and all the greats, and Nightmare on Elm Street, all the major hits there. And it's going to be printed 60-pound gloss text paper, 100-pound cover. Don't forget, as we look through this art here too, and you saw some of the black and white art in the video, this will all be colored in the ultimate end. So remember, this will be a fully colored comic. Here's some of those interior pages. Some of the colored ones here. And then the black and white version before that. The colored version. And the black and white.
The black and white is going to be offered as a digital for those that are interested in it. Just in case they're like, oh, I kind of want to see the black and white.
Yes. And a insanely grisly end to this character right here.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
that's
then here's
a panel from one of the painted pages.
Yes. And so 4 of the pages are fully oil painted rather than digitally colored. So there will be a moment, a 4-page moment in this comic where it shifts tones a little bit, and we're going to get the oil painted pages, which is awesome. And of course, the not safe for work alternate cover.
That is oil painted too.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. And we've got, of course, Raymond and Joni Haag. I'm assuming I'm pronouncing that right. Joni Haag, Finnish comic writer and letterer. So he's doing the letters. And of course, the 2 covers to choose from. Here we go. So the tiers, the rewards. We've got the $5 digital reward, the basic digital reward of just the comic. We have the $8 combo where you get the black and white and the color together, as Raymond was just saying. $10 physical reward package. And that is both digital and physical that you'll get with the physical. A $12 digital bundle where you'll get the digital comic.
In there, he put his comic preview in there.
And here we go. So, this was something I was going to ask you about, but I can see I didn't notice this when I was reviewing this earlier. But so Raymond's previous comics, Fallen 1 and 2, that he did before I Hate the Mourning, I was looking for where I'm going to have to go back and actually upgrade my pledge because I kind of wanted all your comics, but I didn't see them as add-ons, and I didn't see a tier specifically for Fallen, your previous comics, but it's here. It's part of this digital bundle. $12 gets you I Hate the Mourning digital, both of Raymond's previous comics digitally, Fallen 1 and 2, and then a bunch of it's kind of an indie comics bundle, as we often do on these Kickstarters on top of that, including a preview of Armageddon Quest. Can I just say that? Let's just throw that out there, which is, of course, my comic, which will be coming back to Kickstarter in March. So keep your eyes out for that. I am currently diligently working on putting together the new reward tiers for that. There's going to be some cool ass shit on that, let me tell you guys. But so you get a preview of that Armageddon Quest first issue. I can't give you the first issue because that is what the Kickstarter is for. So just a preview. And then you got to come back for that first issue. And then you'll maybe see the whole issue number 1 a part of indie comic bundles in the far away future. But if you want it now, you can get the preview at the very least. I believe it's a 14-page preview.
There's a lot of great comics in that bundle.
There is. You've got Followed North. I can see his Fallen comics. Palace of A Casual. I'm familiar with that. Supernatural Baby Detective is an amazing comic. I love that one. Palace of the Golden Prince is new to me. That one I'm not unaware of what it is, but looks very cool. An Angel of Darkness.
Angel of Darkness. Yeah.
Yep. Prologue to the Hunter's, something called the Hunter's Blade. Those are all new.
That was Preston. I can't remember how you pronounce his last name, but Preston. Well, hang on, I'll look it up.
Okay.
Yeah, he did that Angel or the. Oh, my brain is fried today. Pardon me.
No worries. Yeah, we were one of the other things we talked about backstage, guys, is how Raymond was like, I almost didn't make it. I thought I was going to be late. It's been a day. His
username is Pocket Jack Comics.
Pocket Jack Comics. Okay.
Yeah, he's very good. Very cool guy. Very nice. And John and what the heck? I'm telling you guys, is this not right there today? He did the Angel of Darkness one. John Lammett, I believe his name is.
Okay.
Yeah. Very, very nice guys. Everybody that supported, I'm super appreciative. Is very
absolutely
cool.
Yes. And whenever I get these indie comic bundles, like I will often, because they come a part of these Kickstarters so much that I will be one of the first to admit that I don't actually like read all of them most of the time, because it's like, who's got the time? But you can kind of skim, and not just the art, but some of the writing too. Like, I care about both. So it's like, okay, kind of what is this story? What is this aesthetic? What is this style? Is this a comic for me? And I will always, when that indie comic bundle drops, and for any of you out there that have been sitting on these indie comic bundles that you've gotten from other Kickstarters, I highly recommend doing this with them if you don't have the time to just like read all, I don't even know, 60 random.
Sometimes there's a whole bunch that come in a bundle. Yeah, like
yes. And if you get 2 or 3 of these bundles, now you're sitting on dozens of issue number 1s or what have you, sometimes more. There are some like full graphic novels that can be dropped in these indie comic bundles, and you're just like, Jesus God, when am I going to read these? But flip through them.
The most I had in one was like, I think there was 30 in one.
Oh Jesus,
like,
that is quite a bundle. Yeah, but skim, like read the first 5 pages and then flip through the art and kind of see, like, because you can usually tell if a comic is really your speed or your style, your aesthetic, or if it's for a different audience. And exactly. And when I say different audience, I don't mean different age group per se. I just mean someone who likes that, and that's not you.
Styles and whatnot.
Exactly.
It's like going to
so definitely flip through them. Yeah. And then we've got $15 if you want your cover signed versus $10 unsigned. And then the $20 variant, not safe for works. The image here is censored, but the cover will not be censored. So the $20 variant, not safe for work cover, and which is also a fully painted image for that cover. $25 if you want the variant cover signed. So $5 more for a signature on either cover. And $40 original cover and variant cover signs. That's your bundle, and both of them signs, and both prints. When you say both prints, do you just mean print comics, or are there
there's like printed out? I got like printed posters. I'm gonna have of the covers.
Ah, beautiful. So print. So print copies of both comics and both prints, A and B. Very cool. And then a $75 vampire drawing reward with 1 original 5x8 drawing inked. That's cool. And is that a custom, or do you pick what's getting
I'm gonna
illustrated?
Pick whatever it is, because I just know people have a hard time making up their mind. So I'll be waiting forever for them to decide. I mean, if you back it and you request something, I'd be more than willing to do it. But if I don't hear anything, I'm just gonna go.
Go for it. Okay. So no promises. If you're not on the ball about paying attention to the messages, or you don't, pledge for it and immediately message him something where it's out the door right away. Get that out there if you want an original piece of art. and
it
you have
will
an
be a
idea.
vampire.
And it will be vampire. So it's got to be vampire. So
Vampire
even
themed,
if it's if it's another one of your favorite characters, you got to get the vampire version of it.
Yeah, you could say, Wolverine as a vampire.
That's a vampire. Awesome. Although I think Marvel's like done that. Marvel and DC have kind of done that with all their vampires.
They had the one What If episode where Wolverine was a vampire.
Yeah. Well, in Marvel, I guess they've done Marvel's zombies. I feel like they did do a whole vampire thing. I kind of don't read too much Marvel and DC.
I don't know if they did a whole mini series of it, but I remember I still have it. What If Wolverine was a vampire? And he had the Punisher hunting him. It was excellent.
That makes sense. Makes sense. Not Blade? Come on, guys.
No, I don't know. They had the Punisher. This is Marvel we're talking about.
All right. And that is, and I'm just kind of going through the reward tiers one last time. Anything. Oh, and a retailer special if you want to get 6 copies of the comic. There is that here as well. There's the drawing. Okay. Yep. That is everything. Anything else about the campaign here, Raymond, that we haven't covered that you're thinking of that you want to mention?
I'm open to suggestions too. If anybody's thinking I'm missing something on there, or if they'd like maybe if I do a cover award, cover commission, I'd be willing to throw it in there.
Okay. So
ask.
Just
ask.
There.
Yeah, just ask. If you're like, hey, what if you did a cover? I'd be willing to put it into the campaign and put a discount in there for that.
Ah, very nice. You heard it here first, folks. Or you've heard it here. Maybe he said it elsewhere too.
This is the first place, yeah. So.
Okay. You heard it here first, folks. You can get a cover commission or other ideas. If you have ideas and you're like, hey, you're an artist, you can do things. I would love to request a blank. He'll figure that out, and you can put in a pledge for that.
Maybe even an oil painting. I might do it.
Maybe even an oil painting. Well, I was going to say, when you said a cover commission, I hesitated from putting that out there for you. I didn't want to be like this cover right here. And I'm like, well, let me not say it. You can say that. I'm not going to say that for you.
Actually, that's on a lot of cold pressed paper. So it accepts the oil paint pretty good. It's not like if you were to use regular paper for it, like you're supposed to use a canvas for oil, right? Because it soaks in so deep. But the cold pressed paper, amazingly, it worked like a hot damn. I was pretty impressed with it. So, yeah, in case there's any oil paint enthusiasts out there, cold pressed paper works.
Beautiful. All right. Well, that is the Kickstarter campaign, everybody. All right. We are at the point now. Dallas has not joined me, so it's just going to be my wine pairing with this comic. But I'm going to reveal what that is. This was now one thing, just a reminder, I've only read the first 6 pages and seen the cover of this comic. So I'm going off of the concept, the visual aesthetic as best I know it from those sample pages. And it's a one shot. So I know what the genre and what the basic setup of the story is and then we know we're going to get lots of gruesome kills and running around and trying to escape and or defeat the monster. So with all that in mind, and having read the pages that I've read and knowing Raymond's style as a writer on this comic, there's a lot of different ways you can go. This is obviously, it's a horror comic, it's bloody, it's vampires, it's slasher. I think the natural assumption is you got to go red, right? You got to go blood red, you got to go deep red. And you can. Absolutely. I think a nice deep dark red, anything from a warm climate, anything, a red from high altitude where the skins grow thick and so are going to extract a lot into the wine. So you're just going to get all this harsher flavors. And by harsh, I really like tobacco and leather and all the black and dark fruits and the tannins that are going to be really powerful from that. And basically, you want the type of wine, the type of grape matters for that to some degree, but also where it's grown actually matters more. Because even though different grapes have different kinds of skins that are going to give you that depth and complexity, where it's grown, what grapes do is the more sunlight they get, the thicker the skins will grow no matter what the variety is. And they do that to protect the fruit inside. It's like defense mechanism that the fruit has. So if it's on like a high altitude and it's getting just a shit ton of sun, there's no shade, it's a hot, warm climate. So already the fruit's going to be taking in a lot of heat. And then there's all this glaring sunshine. The grape will grow this incredibly dense, completely opaque to just like reflect, like get rid of that sunlight. It's not gonna, it's gonna basically protect itself from it for that. So the other thing though, before I get into the darkness of everything, I do think you can, like, where I actually started to go in my brain with this, because I tried a couple different wines while constantly going back to those preview pages and the concept of this. And I thought you can kind of go in the opposite, complete ass end opposite direction. Do a sharp mineral, lots of minerality, lots of tartness, a white. Just and when I say sparkling, I don't mean literally bubbles. So you can do bubbles if you want, but like an effervescent, just sharp, tangy white, where it's got that lightness to it. It's not heavy, it's not cloying, and then it's got these tart, almost stinging characteristics to it, where it's like passion fruit and a lemon, and you've got those citrus notes, and you've just got this liveliness to it that I think because the zest of life, and I think because it's like they got that slasher element to it, where it is just a bunch of kids trying to run away and survive. Like there's a lot of fun to be had in this. It's certainly not a brooding, slow horror movie or horror story in that regard. It's not just like lots of blacks and lots of mournfulness, even though mourning is in the title. It's mostly about the fun that is had with that. And so I think you can also, rosés work as sort of that middle ground as well, where it's like some of that skin extraction to turn it pink, but not so much that it's going all the way red. And where I fell is an interesting place, because the wine I picked, I'm going to show you. I'm going to increase my screen here so everybody can see this a little bit better. But you can see it's not particularly light. The winemaker calls this a rosé. Okay. So it is, you can kind of see some of the hint of color, like it's a little pinkish here, but it is dark motherfucking pink. It's as dark pink as you can get. And this is the Ojo Gallo Torremilanos 2021, which is already, for a rosé, you normally don't see things as old as 2021 on store shelves, but because of how much skin extraction, this is one of those arguments, and it's a real argument where people in the wine world are like, I'm sorry, is this a rosé or is it a light-bodied red? I mean, come fucking on. Like, how are we calling this a rosé? And if you look at it, like here it is in the glass, and it is lighter in color than most reds. Like you can see that it doesn't have that opacity. It's got this
it's a little translucent. Yeah, you can see.
Yeah, it's got that transparency. So it is somewhere weirdly in this weird, mushy, super dark pink, to the point where it's in this mushy middle ground of like, is it a light red or is it the darkest rosé you've ever fucking seen in your life? I'm going with the darkest rosé I've ever fucking seen in my life, because this takes the cake. I've never seen one this bad. And this is from Spain. This is from the Ribera del Duero, which is that high elevation, mountainous area where the skins, you're going to look at, this is a field blend, and a field blend is where they basically take a vineyard, all the different grapes they've planted, everything. So, there's some white grapes in here, white skin grapes in here too. And they literally put it all together, ferment it all together, mix it all together. Doesn't matter what's in there. They take the whole field and they're just like, this is what we're making the wine out of. And they dump it all together. So I actually have this pulled up here. There are some varietals here I've never even heard of, but it's predominantly Tempranillo, Garnacha, which is Grenache, and then a Monastrell, which is Mourvedre as well, and then a bunch of native Spanish grapes, Bobal, Abilo, Viura, Malvasia, all co-fermented in cement and raised for 8 months in used barrels before being bottled without any sulfur for peak drinkability, is the description. And this bad boy, it's got, because it's more of a rosé, less of a red, it's got that liveliness that you can find in a white to a rosé. There is something about it that, as dark as it is for a rosé, it's not dark for a red. And it's got the liveliness of a white, but with still a decent chunk of extraction from those skins. So you're getting some of those complex herbal notes and the tannins, which just dry your mouth out and give it that rough edge to it all. So for me, as much as you could just go blood red and super dark and dense with the wine, I still wanted something lively. And I was like, at the end of the day, I think if you can find yourself, there is something like this that you could find, which is, once again, the kind of rosé this is called from Spain is a Torremilanos. And if you look for a Torremilanos, it's going to be this about this kind of depth of color. You can also, there's a French version of this. Oh no, I'm going to blank on the name. They call it, it's a little bit lighter than this, a little bit, but it's almost as deep and dark. And that's usually the go-to. And you can find that, like Bevmo carries it. And it's a dark rosé. If you go to the French section or the rosé section, you'll find some of those like pinker than salmon. It's like darker. And it's almost verging on red. So if you can find one of those rosés, it's got that sprightliness. It's got the zing. It's got the tartness. So you're just having more fun. And this is still, I think this is a 14.5% alcohol, which for a wine, for a rosé, that is a lot of alcohol. So it's hot climate. Yeah, it's hot climate, a lot of skin extraction. So you're gonna have those rough edges. You're gonna have that punch, but with that liveliness of kind of a white or a lighter rosé mixed in. So that just rounded out this comic. And I think, having, again, only read 6 pages, but getting deeper into it, I still think that just stick with this throughout this one shot, and that's gonna be your love. And then alternately, if you can't find one of these, just go for something like a New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc, something zingy and white and light and bright, or go for a light-bodied red, which can be like a Beaujolais or a Pinot Noir. I think certain Pinot Noirs will have that complexity while still having that buoyancy to them, that little bit of lightness. But this, if you can find it, is much more perfect and much more spot on.
I think you summed it up perfectly with that choice. Yeah.
Yeah, I hope so.
I think so. Yeah, you nailed it.
Yay! All right. So, Raymond, as always, we ask our guests, bring on a comic that you've either loved for a long time or are currently loving, that you're going to spotlight, and then pair it with the beverage. So what do you got for us?
It's actually a series of comics. How's that? I'm reading Creepy.
Nice.
So it's a whole bunch.
I'm gonna enlarge. Hold that up one more time. I'm gonna enlarge in you. There you go. Creepy. Beautiful.
And it's a series of black and white horror stories.
Yes.
You can see. So
awesome.
It's all like old stories, I guess, from the old black and white comics back in the day. And
given a really nice presentation. Yeah.
Yeah, I liked it. So it was it is something that you don't see very much anymore. It's just something unique I found at the comic store. So I was like, I need that. So I paired it with Kruzak. I don't know, how do we get this?
Let me also make you big for this one. There we go. Kruzak. Yeah. Extra aged.
Extra aged, as the stories in the comic are, and it comes from a single barrel, which you get all these stories in a single issue. So
very nice. And that's rum, guys, for those who aren't looking rum and are just listening.
It's a tanned rum, so it's not super dark, and it kind of fits the stories in the comic because they're not all really dark. There's some of that are a little lighter, and I don't have as big of a explanation as yours was. Yours was quite fantastic.
That's okay. We've been doing this for a little while now. We're getting better as we go.
Yeah.
And more mouthy and more verbose as we go as well.
Excellent.
Which I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but it's what's happening. So
well, I think you've got an older audience, so I don't think it matters much, right?
Yeah. No. So on that note, though, so Creepy, and for you, comic wise, like what are your biggest comic influences?
Well, I'm a 90s kid. Like my teenage years were the 90s. So naturally, Jim Lee, Todd McFarlane, Rob Liefeld. I know he's been a critic of late, but I loved his work. It was so dynamic and bursting out of the pages.
Right.
You couldn't help
people
but
weren't. I mean, people were critical of him then for certain elements, but like people weren't really criticizing him in the 90s in terms of like him as a person.
No.
So I think he was still kind of normal back then.
Yeah,
kind of so. As much as any of us are, right?
But no, I still found it to be a major influence, you know. And then you got John Bryan and like,
yes,
you know, all the Jack Kirby's, and like there's so many to go through. I love all the comic artists out there, really, like all the different styles. I mean, if I had to say I studied one more, it would probably be Jim Lee.
Okay.
I studied his work a lot because, well, it's fantastic.
It
the
is.
High detail in there with you know, the dynamic poses, and it just
yes,
amazing.
Well, and during the 90s, he even did that. He went off on that like death blow style for a short while too, which was a really, like, it's interesting how he was like, okay, that was fun going back to what I know. You know, it's like, I don't know how time consuming it was and how crazy that style was for him. But
if like during COVID, he did all those sketches. Did you watch any of that? Or
I don't think I did. No,
you should check out. He did a booklet, I think, too, of all the sketches he did. He did 30 sketches in 30 days or something.
Jesus.
For 30 for comic book stores.
That's very cool.
He did like different styles, like, so he was painting with watercolor to just heavy inks, and it was like amazing the different styles he was putting out. Is like, wow, you know, like what you see him drawing in the comics is just the tip of the iceberg from what he can actually do. I'm sure.
I mean, you know, anyone who can shift styles like that, you know, that's always like, it's like, I want to try a new style, and then they just like blow people's mind with the new style, regardless that he went back to sort of his stand, like, this is what I'm known for. I'm going to keep, I'm predominantly still going to keep doing this. The fact that he could tweak it and knock it out of the park, you know, pretty much on the first issue that he threw out there. I mean, that was sort of a sign that it's like, okay, he's flexible. Like he's got range.
He's the real deal. I don't know, like, if you could term artist, that would be it. I think somebody that can come out of their comfort zone and try something different is, I don't know. I like playing around with different mediums too. Like I pencil and ink, and then I paint with oil and gouache paint as well. So, you know, I find it fun. I like being versatile, so that you can try different stuff. Because I mean, I find if you're using the same style and same mediums all the time, it gets a little dull after a while. It's almost, it feels like a job then, right?
Right. Drudgery, right? Because you're just repeating the same thing over and over and over again. And especially, you think about someone who gets into big 2 comics, like even more so, because it's like you are drawing superhero comics. Like, and that is a very, like, here the same essential, even if their costumes change, you're like, they're the same characters, and you're drawing them in the same way, in the same poses.
Anatomy, basically.
Right. And the same story beats, pretty much, no matter, like, you know, here you are at the top of the building scanning the city, now you're swinging from something, now you're in a car, now you're flying, now you're attacking, and it's like like you can do so many years of that before you're like, that's all I've done this, I've been here before. Oh yeah, we have Little Gypsy in the chat. Awesome comic artist paired with Apothic Cabernet Sauvignon. Yes, the Apothic wines, that would be perfect. I do have to agree with that. Apothic, you know, it's funny. My dad loves the Apothic wines. He drinks them all the time. And Apothic is one of those brands where I remember the days that I loved Apothic too. Like they're a gateway wine for sure. I think they're crowd pleasing. I think they are, depending on, because Apothic has like at least 3 major versions of their, like there's a dark red, there's a light red, and there's something else. I'm going to forget what it is. I think they even have a semi-sweet one. I think I've never been a fan of the semi-sweet one, but the other 2 I was a fan of. It's definitely a wine that when I revisit now, I'm like, it's a little heavy-handed. It's a little not what I like anymore. But
you know what? It does have a bite to it, though.
Yes. Yes, it does. Yes, it does. But I'm telling you, there was a day where I was like, Apothic, this is my go-to. I'd go to the grocery store when I was first getting into wine. Like, when I say when I was first getting into wine, that was like a couple of years. Like, that was not like the first 3 months of my drinking wine. That was like a while. And I would go, and it was definitely whether I was at the grocery store, Target. We have a place in LA here called World Market, which has a nice little wine selection. It's a big chain, but I don't know if it's beyond the West Coast. That's going to be a question. So if you're not on the West Coast in the US, World Market may not exist, but they always have Apothic there. And I bought it from there relentlessly. So I'm with you there, and good on theme suggestion for this comic too, as well. All right, cool. So what else do you have after I Hate the Morning? And 22 days left, guys, for I Hate the Morning. So please go check that out. Let me drop the link to the Kickstarter here in the chat for anyone who might be looking for it. And Raymond,
I do plan on going back to my Fallen series.
Right. So that'll be next for you.
Yeah, like I said, I needed a break, and this is the break from it. So I got a little reset there, and
yeah,
I'm about halfway through the 3rd issue. So when I say halfway through, I mean like the writing is done, and I'm halfway through the art.
Gotcha.
I like to get it all finished before I launch. Typically,
yes.
I'm a little behind the 8 ball with this one because I don't have the coloring
right? Yeah.
But that was kind of a last minute decision. So
yes,
but yeah, I'm getting quicker with it.
Good.
With the digital coloring, I'm a little new to it, so
right.
It's a bit of a process for me when I forget to do something, and it's like, oh, now I got to go back, right?
Yeah. Yep.
But no, it's a process, and I'm getting a little quicker. So I'm hoping to have it all done by May for sure. So then off to the printer, and then into my hands and to the mailboxes.
Perfect. All right, guys. Well, you got your marching orders. Go check out this comic, and we will catch you next time on the Wine and Comics Pairing Show. I believe our next show will be Monday of next week. And Raymond, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure. I can't wait to read this too, honestly.
I really appreciate you having me on the show. It's excellent.
Absolutely. All right, guys. We will check you next time. We are going unlive.